When you love someone, even their silence can fill the emptiness in your heart. But what happens when that love forgets even your name? Mariana never imagined that the love of her life would become a stranger in front of her. After the accident, Alejandro woke up with no memory of who she was, leaving her desperate to win back the heart of the one she loved. She tried everything, taking him to the places that marked their history, showing him photos, and even recreating the moments they shared, but he saw her only as a stranger. What seemed like a battle with fate became even harder with the manipulation of Donna Beatriz, Alejandro's mother, who wanted to keep them apart at any cost. What Mariana didn't know was that, even though Alejandro's memory was failing, the heart never forgets what is true. Now get ready for this emotional story. But before we begin, take a moment to check if you're subscribed to the channel, because in the upcoming videos, we'll have even more stories that will touch your heart. Mariana was a talented but resourceful young painter who sold her paintings on the streets of Guanajuato. One rainy morning, her fate crossed with Alejandro's, heir to one of the wealthiest families in the region. He was engaged to another woman, but the purity and intensity of Mariana captivated him from the very first glance. Against all odds, they lived a passionate romance where love seemed boundless. However, a tragic car accident changed everything. Alejandro survived, but when he woke up, the pain was greater than any physical scar. He lost his memory of who Mariana was, the woman he had loved with all his soul. Desperate to regain the man she loved, Mariana found herself facing a fight that seemed impossible, not knowing that the greatest challenge would be to win back his heart. Mariana looked at Alejandro as if trying unsuccessfully to touch the past that now seemed distant, almost intangible. He was standing before her, physically present but emotionally absent. His eyes, which once radiated the glow of deep love, were now empty, as if the essence of what they had shared had been erased, leaving only a cold reflection of a man who barely recognized his own being. The first days after the accident were the hardest for Mariana. She spent hours by Alejandro's side, trying to reignite the memories that were lost, but he seemed unable to recall any of the moments they had shared. He looked at her with a confused expression, as if trying to fit a piece of a puzzle that made no sense. When she spoke to him about the moments they had shared the first time they met, the night under the starry sky, the sunflower field where they kissed for the first time, he would just shake his head, not understanding. "I really don't remember anything, Mariana," he said, the pain in his voice becoming more evident. "You seem important, but I don't know why." These words cut Mariana like sharp knives. How was it possible that the love of her life didn't recognize her? She felt as if she were trying to grasp the wind, searching for something that deep down she knew was there, but couldn't reach. Despite this, she didn't give up. Mariana knew their love couldn't be forgotten so easily. So she began a silent but fierce battle that required patience and courage. She took Alejandro to all the places they had visited together. First, to the small square where he had proposed to her, then to the bridge where they made promises that in his mind were still alive. She brought old photos, recreated the dinners they used to have at home, hoping that some spark, some moment of familiarity would ignite something within him. Nothing happened. Alejandro continued to treat her with distant courtesy, but without the passionate glow she remembered. The pain he caused in her heart was indescribable, but Mariana couldn't give up. She believed their love could be regained. But as she struggled with her own emotions, a shadow formed around her. Donna Beatriz, Alejandro's mother, was a constant presence, and she was not fond of the idea of Mariana in her son's life. She saw Mariana as a threat, not only emotionally, but also financially. Beatriz didn't see Mariana as a woman who loved her son, but as a poor girl who could put the Fernandez family's inheritance at risk. With the help of a few allies, Beatriz began to plant seeds of distrust. She spread rumors accusing Mariana of being an opportunist, someone who was only interested in Alejandro because of his wealth. "She's not good enough for him," Beatriz said to friends and family. "She's just an artist trying to take advantage of the situation. Alejandro deserves someone from his own class." This caused many to begin looking at Mariana with suspicion, and she started to feel isolated, as if she were fighting against the entire world. Alejandro, still vulnerable after the accident, began to believe his mother's words. He grew more and more distant, and his attempts to make him remember seemed in vain. The man she loved was pulling away, and with each passing day, she felt as if she were losing him more and more. Meanwhile, Alejandro's fiancée, Camila, returned to the city. She always had her own interests in mind, and Mariana knew this. Camila had no genuine love for Alejandro. She wanted him only for what he represented, a life of luxury and status. Upon learning of Alejandro's memory loss, she took advantage of the situation, trying to get closer to him, claiming that maybe she was the only one who could help him remember the past. Camila, with her charm and manipulation, tried to infiltrate Alejandro's life more and more, convincing him that he needed her to return to normal. Mariana saw Camila's approach as a threat, but she also felt deep sadness upon realizing that Alejandro was starting to trust Camila more than her. He saw her as someone who knew him before, someone who could help him understand what he had lost. This was the final blow to Mariana. She felt invisible, as if she were being erased from Alejandro's life, and the weight of loneliness crushed her. It was in this moment of profound pain that she made a decision. Mariana would walk away. She knew that no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't force someone to love. And if Alejandro didn't remember her, then maybe it was time for her to move on as well. With a broken heart, she began to withdraw from everything they had shared, retreating to a place where she could find some sort of peace. But contrary to what Mariana imagined, her departure was not the end. Alejandro was losing more than just memories. He was losing the only woman who had truly loved him, and with each passing day, he felt an increasing emptiness within himself, a sense that something was missing. This emptiness became unbearable, and he knew without knowing how that his life made no sense without her. The story is getting more and more exciting, isn't it? Let us know in the comments what you think. So far. And don't worry, don't go anywhere, there's still so much more to come. Alejandro was losing himself in an emptiness he couldn't explain. With each passing day, the discomfort inside him only grew. He felt like something important was missing, something that, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't remember. The days became a blur of faces, commitments, and meaningless conversations. Nothing seemed to fill the hole that opened within him. The happiness he felt with Camila wasn't genuine, and he knew that deep in his soul, even if he couldn't articulate that feeling. She was by his side, but the emptiness in his heart deepened even further. Meanwhile, Mariana withdrew to a place where she could reconnect with herself, away from all the suspicious glances and accusations from her mother. She knew she was at a breaking point, a place where she needed to distance herself both physically and emotionally in order to find a new beginning. She moved to a small village near the mountains where she started painting again. Her works, always full of emotions and feelings, began to take on a deeper tone, reflecting the pain, longing, and loss she felt. Each brushstroke seemed like a silent cry from her soul, trying to express what words couldn't. The place she sought refuge in was simple but peaceful, and Mariana felt that here she could finally deal with her pain without the pressure of a world that looked at her with judgment. The people in the small town welcomed her with kindness, and soon she was invited to exhibit her paintings at a local gallery. Her art, full of emotion and symbolism, began to attract the attention of critics and art collectors. The pain she felt transformed into beauty, and her fame grew with each new painting she created. But even with all the success, the emptiness of losing Alejandro never left her. It was at one of these exhibitions that fate once again intervened. After several months of frustration and mental confusion, Alejandro finally found a distraction that in some way made him feel more complete: art. Since the accident, he hadn't been able to find anything that truly filled him. But when visiting an art gallery in the city, something happened. He found himself hypnotized by a particular painting, a piece that depicted a man and a woman dancing under a starry sky. The painting was so vivid, so full of emotions, that Alejandro couldn't stop looking at it. Something in the back of his mind seemed to awaken. The image was familiar, but he couldn't identify why. The painting had something intimate and profound, as if it was a memory from his own life. Each brushstroke seemed to reflect a piece of his forgotten history. The most curious thing was that he couldn't remember who the man and woman in the painting were, but he felt an intense connection to the scene depicted. He bought the painting, not really knowing what he was looking for, but feeling that something in it could help him understand what was missing. When he got home, he placed the painting in his living room and spent hours staring at it, trying to understand what he was feeling. The emptiness that tormented him seemed a little less painful, but it was still there, latent. And it was at that moment that the memories began to return, slowly, as if every piece of his life was being stitched back together in his mind. The first fragment was the smell of fresh paint, which led him to remember the painting studio where he and Mariana spent many afternoons together, then the sound of their laughter in a sunflower field, and finally the image of Mariana, not as a stranger, but the woman he loved with all his being. She was there, in the memories, in every brushstroke of that painting. Tears began to stream down Alejandro's face as he remembered everything. He remembered the love they shared, the tight embrace, the kisses, the promises. He remembered how Mariana made him feel alive, how she brought him back to his humanity, to a place where he felt whole. He remembered everything, and suddenly guilt, shame, and pain overwhelmed him. How could he have forgotten her? How could he have let her go without even fighting for her? How could he have allowed himself to be manipulated by his mother, by Camila, by everyone who pushed him away from the woman he truly loved? Desperate, Alejandro began searching for Mariana. He knew she had distanced herself, but where was she? What was she doing? He used his fortune and his network of contacts to track down every place where her paintings had been sold, and after much effort, he finally discovered that she was living in a small village. There he found the last clue, a gallery exhibition of her paintings. With a heavy heart, Alejandro traveled to the village, unsure of what he would find, but knowing that he couldn't live without her anymore. He needed to see her, needed to apologize, needed to make up for lost time. But what he didn't know was that when he found her, she would already be in a very different place emotionally than when he let her go. When he finally arrived at the gallery and saw Mariana among the guests, he froze. She was more beautiful than he remembered, but what struck him the most was the look in her eyes, a look he knew well, but one that was now distant, almost untamable. She didn't look at him with anger, but she also didn't show any signs that she still loved him as she once did. His heart tightened, and he realized that the fight to win Mariana back would be much harder than he had imagined. But he was willing to fight, willing to do anything to bring her back. Mariana, upon seeing him, felt a whirlwind of emotions. She knew she was being watched, but couldn't afford to show weakness. She had learned to live without him, to build a new life, a life where he was no longer a part. But when she looked into his eyes, she saw something that made her hesitate. He was remorseful, deeply remorseful. Something inside her said that maybe he had truly found his way back to her, but she didn't know if she was ready to forgive him. The pain of her loss still consumed her, and the idea of reopening old wounds terrified her. However, Alejandro's look was sincere. He wasn't there just to apologize, but to win back the love he knew he had lost, and now, maybe it was his last chance to find it. Mariana sighed, and before responding, she studied the man before her, the man who she had once loved with all her heart, now as vulnerable and desperate as she had been. She knew life had put them on difficult paths, but something in his gaze still spoke louder than everything that had happened between them. I'm glad you're enjoying this beautiful story. But before we continue, I noticed you haven't liked the video yet. It's really important for YouTube to keep recommending our content, so we can keep bringing more emotional stories like this one. So don't wait, hit that like button now and help our community grow. Thanks. The moment was tense, charged with an inexplicable energy. Alejandro and Mariana stared at each other as if the world around them had disappeared, reduced to just the two of them. The air was thick, and the words got lost in the vastness of unresolved longing and pain. Mariana knew he had changed, but the scars were still there, deep, and the fear of reopening old wounds made her hesitate. The truth was, she had already tried to move on, already tried to overcome, or at least pretend to overcome, the loss of everything they had built. And now suddenly he was here, his eyes full of regret, and the only thing he wanted was her forgiveness. But could she trust him again? Mariana. Alejandro's voice was soft, almost as if he feared that any louder word would shatter the fragile balance between them. I know I hurt you, and I know it's too late to apologize, but I'm here, willing to do whatever it takes to rebuild what I destroyed. I didn't know what I had lost until I was without you. She watched him in silence, her chest tight. Each word he spoke echoed inside her heart, but the pain of past memories made her pull back. How could he be so calm now, after everything that had happened? How could he ask for something he had already lost? Her mind was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. You forgot me, Alejandro, she replied, her voice trembling but firm. You forgot who I am, our love, everything. You let your mother, Camilla, and everyone else drive a wedge between us. And when you needed me the most, you abandoned me. How can I trust you now? Her words fell like heavy stones upon him, making him feel the weight of the mistake he had made. He had been selfish, weakened by the lost memory, and allowed himself to be consumed by the influence of people around him. His mother had manipulated him, Camilla had deceived him, but he hadn't realized until it was too late. I was lost, Mariana, he said, his voice filled with sorrow. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to handle the pain of losing, my identity, of not knowing who I was anymore. And when I saw you, I couldn't understand what was happening to me. Now I know that what I was feeling wasn't confusion, but the loss of something that should never have been lost. I love you. Mariana, I've always loved you and I always will. He moved closer slowly as if fearing she would reject him. His gaze was fixed on her eyes, seeking a reaction, a sign that there was still something there, something that could reignite the flame of love that once united them. But Mariana couldn't give an immediate answer. What he said seemed sincere, but she was still full of doubts. Had he really changed? Or was he just a desperate man trying to fix something that couldn't be fixed? I don't know if I can believe you, Alejandro, she replied, her voice almost breaking. Words aren't enough to erase everything that happened. I loved you in a way I never thought possible, but you left me alone in the hardest moment of my life. I can't forget that. He took a step forward, his face marked by pain. I know it's hard, but I'm willing to prove, with actions and not just words, that my love for you never died. I know I was wrong, but I want to fix it if you'll let me. The silence stretched between them, a heavy silence where they both tried to understand where the love of the past could be rebuilt. Mariana felt the internal struggle, the desire to believe in him, but also the fear of being hurt again. But as she looked into Alejandro's eyes, she felt something she couldn't deny. He was genuinely regretful, and perhaps she wasn't the only one who had suffered. Perhaps their love had been tested in ways neither of them could have anticipated. She took a deep breath, her thoughts cloudy, but finally spoke. If you really love me, Alejandro, you'll have to do more than apologize. You'll have to fight. For me, for us, I can't be the only one carrying the weight of our past anymore. I can't be the only one suffering. He looked at her, his eyes shining with determination. I'm ready to fight, Mariana. No matter how long it takes. No matter what's needed, I'll do whatever it takes. And with those words, something inside her broke. It wasn't an easy decision, but something in her heart finally began to trust him. Maybe it was the fact that he wasn't asking for a second chance out of selfishness, but because he truly believed he had lost something precious and was willing to fight to get it back. Maybe it was the fact that deep down she still loved him. Even with all the pain, she still felt that burning love, that deep connection that could never be completely erased. All right, she said finally, with a heavy sigh, but know that it won't be easy, Alejandro. I loved you deeply, but I was also hurt deeply. This won't disappear overnight. He looked at her, a soft smile forming on his lips. I know, Mariana, and I'll be by your side every day until you trust me again. The climax of the story was before them, but there was still much to be rebuilt. The love between Alejandro and Mariana was about to begin again, but this time with the promise that it wouldn't just be a story of loss and pain, but a story of redemption and reconstruction. They had learned the hard way that true love isn't just about happy moments, but also about facing the difficulties and obstacles life throws at you. Alejandro knew that the road ahead would be tough, but he was determined to do whatever was necessary to win Mariana's forgiveness and regain the love they once shared. Mariana, in turn, knew that she would need to take careful steps, but she also felt that the true love she had lost and was now beginning to regain was stronger than any pain she had felt. And so, with the promise of a new chance, they began to walk together on an unknown path, a path where pain and loss had given way to hope and the possibility of renewed love. Love had finally found its way back. The days following that encounter, filled with promises and redemption, were anything but easy. Alejandro and Mariana had taken the first step toward a new beginning, but the past, with its shadows and scars, was unwilling to let go. Every gesture, every word, every glance felt like a constant battle between who they were and who they had been. Their love had not instantly rekindled. There was no magic to erase the pain they had shared, yet there was hope, a hope that slowly began to blossom once more. Mariana, still cautious, had her doubts. The love she felt for Alejandro was immense, but also a vulnerable flame, a fire that needed careful nurturing to avoid being extinguished. Alejandro's words of forgiveness and commitment sounded sincere, but how could she trust a man who once forgot who she was and everything they had shared? How could she believe he would never fail her again? Alejandro knew he could not ask her to forget what had happened or simply put aside the wounds he had caused. He understood it would take more than promises and empty words. It would take time, patience and actions to show that he was not just trying to remedy his mistakes, but to build something solid, something real. He wanted to be worthy of the love Mariana still felt for him, or at least believed she could feel again. So, with his anxious heart and broken soul, he committed himself to the journey of reclaiming what he had lost. Their restart was gradual, and they found themselves time and again trying to find a new balance. They began spending more time together, but without rushing, without forcing feelings that, no matter how strong, were still in the process of healing. Slowly, Mariana allowed herself to relax, lowering the defenses she had built so firmly over time. She started to see him, not as the man who had forgotten her, but as the one willing to remember and rebuild. Alejandro, in turn, saw each small gesture from her as a victory, a sign that perhaps she was beginning to trust him again. It was a process of reconstruction, not just of a love story, but also of the trust that had been destroyed. During these moments, Mariana felt a whirlwind of emotions. Her love for Alejandro still pulsed within her like an electric current, but there was also bitterness, a fear of surrendering again. What if he forgot her again? What if, one day, he drifted away once more, as he had before? She wasn't sure. She could endure another abandonment. And yet, she knew love could not be built on fear. Alejandro was willing to wait. He didn't just want her forgiveness. He wanted to reclaim his place in her heart. For that, he knew he needed to be patient, to be the man she needed without haste or pressure. The path to winning Mariana back would be long, but he was ready to face it with determination. They spent long afternoons together, talking about everything and nothing, eating in the small squares of Guanajuato, sitting on the sidewalks of humble cafes, watching the world go by as they exchanged looks that felt different, as if they were getting to know each other for the first time. It was a delicate reunion, where with every laugh and shared word, a bit of the distance that had separated them faded away. But, as with everything in life, the true test would come when they faced the weight of the real world. After all, the past does not fade easily. There were still the shadows of manipulation from Doña Beatriz, Alejandro's mother, who had never accepted Mariana's presence in his life, and Camila, who continued her relentless attempts to separate them, still trying to get close to Alejandro with false intentions. Their love would be tested again, and external adversities were not easily overcome. One sweltering summer afternoon, the confrontation finally happened. Doña Beatriz, furious about Mariana's return to Alejandro's life, found them together in the square where they had first met. She approached them with an imposing posture, her gaze full of disdain. "Do you really think he's going to stay with you, Mariana?" Beatrice said, her voice sharp. "You're nothing more than a simple painter who took advantage of his vulnerability. He doesn't belong to you." Mariana met her gaze firmly, her heart pounding but unwavering. She knew what Beatrice was trying to do: drive her away again and prove she was never worthy of Alejandro's love. But Mariana was no longer the insecure woman she once was. She had learned through pain and suffering to value herself. "I'm not a threat to him," Mariana replied calmly. "He loves me, and we both know that. No matter what you do or say, you can't erase what we've shared." Beatrice's glare hardened, but she retreated, furious. She knew she couldn't win a battle that was already lost. Yet, Camila was not ready to give up so easily. She still believed she could win Alejandro back, and that belief was far from fading. "You're nothing without him, Mariana," Camila said as she approached with a fake smile. "I'll do everything to make sure you're out of his life. If you think this love story will be easy, you're sorely mistaken." But Mariana was immune to such manipulation. She knew what true love required and was ready to fight for it no matter who tried to destroy it. Neither the pressure of a controlling mother nor the schemes of a jealous woman would separate them now. They had suffered too much not to know what was truly worth it. Alejandro, witnessing the conflict between Mariana and the forces trying to tear them apart, knew he had a clear choice to make. He could yield to the pressures, follow his family's expectations, and return to his former life of privilege and security. But he knew that life would never bring true happiness. His happiness was with Mariana, and he no longer wanted to live without her. The decision was made. Alejandro chose to love without fear, to fight against everyone and everything trying to keep them apart. He knew the road ahead would not be easy, but he was ready to face it, because their love was greater than any obstacle destiny could throw their way. And so, with renewed courage and united hearts, Alejandro and Mariana moved forward together toward a future where there would be no more secrets, no more fears, only the love that had withstood the test of time and adversity. True love, when it is worthy and enduring, always finds its way back. What defines true love? Perhaps it's the ability to forgive, to rebuild amidst the ruins of mistakes and misunderstandings. Alejandro and Mariana's story reminds us that love, no matter how intense and genuine, is not immune to human flaws, fears, or challenges. It requires courage to confront imperfections and determination to overcome external adversities. Alejandro didn't just recover his memory, he rediscovered the meaning of love. In Mariana, he saw not just a woman who endured the unbearable, but a strength that inspired him to be better, to fight for what truly mattered. Mariana, in turn, learned that true love isn't about perfection, but resilience. It's about seeing someone's flaws and still choosing to believe that the future can be brighter than the past. This story is also an invitation to reflect on the second chances we give not just to others, but to ourselves. It's a reminder that even when everything seems lost, it's possible to rebuild. That love, when genuine, is like art. Even if the canvas is stained or torn, there is always a way to create something beautiful from it. As Alejandro and Mariana walk hand in hand, leaving behind the weight of past grievances, they show us that love isn't about never making mistakes, but about always choosing to try again. It's about recognizing the other's fragility and still choosing to stay. May this story inspire each of us to believe in the power of love, not as something magical or idealized, but as a force that, though imperfect, can transform us and guide us toward a fuller and more meaningful life. And you? Have you ever thought about the second chances you could give to love in your own life? If this story touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who believes in the power of true love. Leave a comment telling us what you would do for a second chance at love. We're eager to hear your story.